My name is Matthew. This is my wife, Erin. We've been going to CCV now for 8 years. We moved into the neighborhood, and I remember coming home from work one day, or we were shopping, and a neighbor across the street came up and said, "Hey, would you guys go to church with us?" And my response, "I'm not going," was my response to him, because I didn't know who he was. And then them kind of leaning on us a little bit, and our daughters were best friends, and our daughter came over one day and was like, "Dad, how come we don't go to church?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." It just progressed on, and then finally it was like, "Let's join a small group." And I'm like, we don't have the time. I mean, we got all these things going on during the week. You work, I work. When are we gonna find time? But once we set a date and we stuck to it, it was just like amazing. Everybody coming around and talking about God and just living the life, and all the wisdom that everybody had to share was really cool. Just to help us grow more in our faith too at the time, especially since I was kind of on the fence a little bit.
It was just cool to meet people that way, and just see how they're doing life a little differently than we are, and we liked the way they were doing life, so it's just cool to be a part of. Six years ago, our youngest son, Ryan, was diagnosed with epilepsy. We didn't know anything was wrong until I picked him up and he wasn't there. And called 911, rushed him to the hospital, and ever since that day, he's had seizures for 6 years. All the way from a few a week to hundreds a day to none during the day, only at night. And then we just recently were back in the hospital with him.
We thought it was just routine, maybe get to the hospital and they do the emergency meds to kind of break him up. And then we went from Thunderbird Hospital to Phoenix Children because they just couldn't get him under control. They weren't stopping. So they had to put him into like an induced coma.
During that time in ICU, it was back and forth of them trying to take him out of the coma. He would still have seizures, putting him back in the coma, like back and forth. And he did go into cardiac arrest during that time, so we almost lost him. That was absolutely crazy. But yeah, he pulled through that, thank goodness.
We heard about the Walters and their son Ryan, and immediately our neighborhood group began to pray. Food tidings were started, and then from there, a family or two got together and did a lemonade stand in the neighborhood and raised $1,000. And we had a prayer vigil for them, and there was 30 to 40 people. More importantly, just the continued support of our neighborhood group and other people from other neighborhood groups going down to Phoenix Children's and delivering meals and praying with them. I know we did that, and it was huge for the family. They just needed to know they weren't going through this alone.
If we didn't have the support of our group, it would have been tough.
Impossible.
It would have been really hard.
Yeah, I think just seeing the love that they have for us. The church is doing what the church is supposed to do, and I just think that is awesome. And in the beginning, it was hard for us to accept a lot of the help. We always want to give, but we never want to receive. And our family, I mean, they've been absolutely wonderful, but it has definitely been our church community that has impacted me personally the most through this.
If we didn't have this kind of support around us from our neighborhood, it would have been pretty impossible just to manage it by ourselves.